And I think it's about 4:01 right now, so we can start the training.
Okay, Megan, let's get started. Thanks for keeping us going.
Somebody who's goal-oriented.
Yep, I love it.
He's always like that.
So Carly, Megan, do you want to give your reminder, and then we'll have Carly do the introduction, and then we'll have Marysue take it away, okay? So Megan,
Sure.
why don't you refresh us on what we're supposed to do?
So everybody please put on mute so Marysue can talk.
1 minute, hold on.
Thank you. Please put on mute for Marysue to do her information on the Zoom call. So give away, Marysue.
Yep, well, we're going to have Carly do the introduction first. She's going to
Okay.
tell us a little bit about Marysue. So go ahead, Carly.
Perfect.
Go ahead.
Marysue moved to Connecticut many years ago to teach at the American School for the Deaf. While she no longer teaches there, she is an avid fan and supporter of the school and continues to use her teaching skills, providing workshops and training and mentoring new interpreters. Marysue has been a nationally certified interpreter for almost 40 years. She can often be seen interpreting for a Broadway musical at the Bushnell and every summer for the Talcott Mountain Music Festival in Simsbury. And I am introducing you to her, and she's going to take it away now.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Now let's see. Can everybody see the screen? Oh,
No.
no. Okay, hang on.
I just got all this stuff.
I tell you,
I'm on the
always...
call. I'm on. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Logan.
Okay, here we try again. This is always a challenge for me. And if anybody there has a lot of experience with this, it might be easier for me just to email the slides to you.
You could just email us the slides afterwards. I'll do a follow-up.
Okay, I can do that too.
Everybody.
All right. Let's see. Here we Okay. Now, why can't I? Okay, that's not what I want to do. Second, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I'm usually the one. Yeah, normally I'm the one that's interpreting. So I don't have to bother with this.
No worries. Take your time.
Okay,
And if you need,
let's see.
So Debbie,
yeah.
I'm all the way in Texas.
You're in Texas. Thanks for calling in for today's meeting, John. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
became
right.
KO.
Yeah.
My niece and nephew were trying to. My niece and my brother are trying to get
You
me
got
online.
Awesome.
Yeah,
All right,
can-
everybody, put yourself on mute. So we'll
Yeah,
get to Marysue.
yeah. Can I ask you a question after this here at 10 o'clock?
Okay, that's okay, Alicia. Just you can
Thank you.
leave when you need to. No problem. Thanks for letting
Thank
us.
you, buddy. Thank you.
Okay, so everybody can see this. Okay, are we good? Okay. All right. So first of all, thank you for inviting me. And first thing I want to do is show you the sign for thank you. You can do it you can do it with one hand or two hands, but it comes from the mouth and it's thank you.
I know what to do. I know what
It's
what,
like
what
almost
to
blowing
do.
a kiss, sort of.
It is. Almost, exactly. And then the second one is, and it means to welcome somebody or an invitation. All right. And I'll explain a little bit more later because some people get confused and they think that means like, oh, when you say thank you, you're welcome. It doesn't, but I'll explain that later. But anyway, so I just want to say thank you for letting me join you today. I'm very excited about this. I love the work of Special Olympics. You are a wonderful organization and you've been around for so long and you've done so many wonderful things. So I'm very happy to be able to be with you. I would like to get to know a little bit about you. Know that it can kind of get a little confusing. So what I would like to do, first of all, is just, you can unmute yourself and just let me know how many of you have actually met a deaf person before? Just say yes, so I can hear. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Yes.
No.
Oh, that's great.
Wow.
Okay, so many of you have. That's wonderful. My next question is, how did you know they were deaf? Was it from the way that because they were signing, because you saw something? Did somebody tell you they were deaf?
No, I feel like it. No, I feel like it was like I don't know,
Mhm.
but like right away, probably when they were communicating with sign though, like when I was speaking like at a presentation though, it was really like interesting how they like how they were communicating with every single word like the speaker saying.
Okay, so they were signing.
Yeah.
So they were, okay, great. Okay. And
Somebody told me.
yeah, they told you that they were deaf. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I'm sorry, Aaron
That's
Newton.
okay.
Aaron Newton. Yes, I did meet some people back then when I was with the color guard, and I met some people who are mostly deaf because my fiance learned how to speak, learned how to communicate with them and everything else. And that was my first time seeing that. And I was really amazed. And I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn about sign language and everything else because in school they never taught us anything about sign language. And this is a really good teaching us how to do this and everything else. So, and I also met some people at the Yukon football game, and I met some of them like they were like sign language
Yes.
and everything else. So it's amazing. It's amazing though.
Yep. There's a group of deaf people who have season tickets to the football game and to the basketball games. And so they sit together and they have a wonderful time at the Yukon games. Yukon has been fantastic about making sure that they have interpreters. So Yukon is a great place to go. What I wanted to say is, even though a lot of deaf people use sign language, I know that this is just a brief introduction, and I don't expect you to really know how to use signs when we're done. All I want you to do is feel comfortable when you meet a deaf person and try to communicate with them. So we'll teach some signs, but basically what we're going to do is focus on how do you communicate with somebody who uses a different language. All right. And this is a very safe place. So if you have a question, no question is too dumb. No question is like forbidden. It's very important that if you have a question, you ask it. Okay. Carly, did you have a question?
Yes. I have a teammate on my team who is, I think, deaf because I can tell when he's near me and goes like this, kind of touching himself, not talking.
Right. Very good. Okay. How about Steve? I don't think it's Steven.
Figure out where the mute button is.
It's Allison or Allie.
Allison. Okay.
Yeah. My question is can you like point to signs or anything to tell people what they want, or you just?
Definitely. And we're going to talk about that. That's an excellent question. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Brittany.
I'm just letting you guys know I'm here.
Okay. Well, it's good to have you here. Glad to see you.
Is it on mute now?
Okay. So again, this is a safe space. And I want you to feel safe to ask the questions because I'm hoping that when you finish today and the next time you see a deaf person,
my mom cannot hear. So I'm trying to figure out how to communicate with her.
Okay, Brittany. If you
okay. That's great. All right.
And Marysue,
yes.
During like when COVID happened, I did some virtual Zooms, and one of them was sign language. So I know a lot of signs as well.
Oh, wonderful. That's great. All right. Well, hopefully you'll get to use a lot of it when you meet some deaf people.
Yeah.
I want you to look at this picture. Or actually, there's several pictures here. Just by looking at this picture, can you tell who might be deaf?
Last time, Mr. Rosberg was yelling at me once. I was down here. You were too close.
Yeah, yelling at me. I was low.
Oh my God, what is that? The radio?
I think the bottom picture shows a lot
Know
of
exactly
communication.
who's deaf on his picture.
Okay. I'm sorry, is somebody asking a question?
Yes, I
answering?
don't know like if anybody else is deaf is on this picture because it seemed like everybody else is normal. And you have like I mean, okay, in the first one, you have little kids smiling and everything else. So then you have another woman though who's just smiling too, and then you have like you have four people in one family. You have the mother, the father, and the sister, and the little one. They're all different. You have the one guy who's on the bottom with the suit though. It seemed like he's not deaf either. And then these people down here, they seem like they're not deaf. They're like best friends and everything else. So and then you have the woman who's dressed up in I'm gonna say a Taichiki from Africa, and I think she's not deaf either, and I think on the last one they're all like three of the kids now on the bottom, they're all smiling. I don't think they're all deaf. I don't see if they're mostly deaf or not though. But,
Okay, that was perfect. Thank you. Because the whole point is we call deafness an invisible disability because you can't necessarily see. Like if someone has a mobile disability, like if they're in a wheelchair or if someone is blind, you can see it. You can tell usually. All right. But with deafness, they often will say the only thing that doesn't work are my ears. Everything else works just fine. And you can't really tell until they go to speak, or if let's say you're talking to them and they don't respond and you're like, wait a minute, are they ignoring me? No, they're just deaf. Okay. But the important thing to recognize is that the deafness, even though it's technically considered a disability, very often what they will say is it's a disability that you would never notice until you actually encounter us. Okay? All right. Now we're going to talk about the next slide is what does the word deaf mean? Now you have to understand there is the term deaf that we use when we talk about a disability, which is talking about from the medical perspective when something doesn't work right with your ears. So it could be a whole range. It could be people who have a very mild deafness to somebody who hears absolutely nothing at all. All right. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my family because this is how I learned so much about deafness. My mother was blind, completely blind. She didn't see anything at all, but she could grow. When she grew up, she could see. And as she became an adult, she had what was called retinitis pigmentosa, and she lost her vision. So that by the time I was born, she was completely blind.
That's sad.
My mom and dad had 6 children, and 4 out of the 6 children were deaf.
Wow.
We could all see, we didn't have any problem with our vision, but 4 of us were deaf. So I grew up in a family where I was very used to what people call disabilities. So I grew up with a mom who couldn't see, but you know what? Even though she couldn't see, she could do everything. My house was the cleanest house in the neighborhood because my mom cleaned by touch. And she cooked, she did everything. So I didn't think of it as a disability. My brothers and sisters, they couldn't hear, but they could do whatever they needed and wanted to do. So I had a very personal, positive experience about disabilities. And I realized that a disability is when people look at you and they think you can't do something. But many people who have disabilities see themselves as very capable, and they can do almost anything if the opportunities are there and you make sure that you make the environment very positive for them. So when I'm talking about deafness here, when they look at the medical definition, we're looking at something that measures how much you can't hear. And we measure it and we show it through an audiogram. So I don't know if any of you have a hearing loss, or if you know somebody who's had a hearing loss, or if you've ever had a hearing test. They put you in this little booth and they put headphones on you.
Okay.
And
Okay.
there's absolutely no sound at all in the booth. It's very weird because we don't realize how much, even when it sounds extremely quiet, there's still noise. In the air, things might be moving, like a leaf could be, moving or anything, but all of that makes noise. But when you're in a booth that have your hearing tested, they make sure there's no sound at all in there, and they put these headphones on you, and they use a machine, and they press different sounds that are in different ranges. So the picture on the left, okay, you see where there's a dog barking? Okay, that picture, okay, if you had what is referred to as a 60 decibel loss in your hearing, sometimes people say percent, but it doesn't really work like that, because there's decibels and then there's hertz, which is a very complicated way of saying when you hear something, sometimes it's in a higher frequency, sometimes it's in a lower frequency. So you might hear a dog bark, but you might not be able to hear birds tweeting. Because if you look, birds are up on the very top, up in the top right corner. So those sounds are a higher frequency, and depending on where your hearing loss is, you might be able to hear them, you might not. The things at the very, very bottom, like a jackhammer or a rock band or a jet plane, those are so loud that even if you might not be able to hear them, you could probably feel them. So the sound that's coming in, if you didn't have your hearing tested, you might wonder, well, I think I hear that, but you might actually be feeling it, not hearing it. In that little yellow swatch, you see letters. That little thing, we call it the hearing banana or the speech banana. And that's when we're talking, that's where most sounds are made, in that area. So, for example, if I had a 20 or 30 decibel loss, I might not be able to hear a bird tweeting, but I might be able to hear people talking and calling my name. Okay? But if I had like an 80 or 90 decibel loss, I probably wouldn't be able to hear any of that. Okay? So everybody's hearing and hearing loss and hearing ability is different. And that's what when the medical people talk about deafness, that's what they're talking about. Okay, so we don't really need to focus a lot on that. The term that the deaf community uses, they use a capital D, and what the deaf community talks about is the language and the culture and the community that they have, where they all feel like they have a lot more in common. So maybe one person hears better than another, but they both know what it's like not to be able to hear completely. Okay? Now, the next thing is, whoops, I'm sorry, I just skipped. Okay. The deaf community depends on their eyes to be able to hear. Okay? So meaning that they may not actually hear something with their ears, but if they see somebody moving, that will be that's where they need to focus so that they know what's being said. So a lot of times they'll say, my eyes are my ears and my hands are my mouth, meaning I listen with my eyes and I use my language I use with my hands. And that that could be somebody who has no hearing at all, and it could be somebody who has a very mild hearing loss. We also have members of our community who cannot hear or have some sort of a hearing loss and also have some vision issues. And we refer to them as deaf-blind. And that means that they often will need to use touch for their communication. So I don't know if you've ever met anybody like that, but when you talk with them, sometimes if they have some vision and you sit right, very close in front of them and you sign, they can see it. But if their vision is, kind of blurry and all of that, they may not be able to depend on that. And so what we do is we put our hand in their hand and we sign like that. If you ever heard the story of Helen Keller, she's probably the most famous deaf-blind person. And her story is amazing. She was very, very smart. She could hear up to about, I think it was like 3 years old, 4 years old. And then she got sick. And the fever made her lose her vision and her hearing. And from then on, she had to depend on her touch to be able to understand what was happening in her world. So if you ever get a chance, it's an amazing story. So again, we talk about deafness is an invisible disability, but the most important thing about deafness is they embrace this feeling of how they are the same, and they've developed a culture of that. One of the best places to visit to see what the deaf culture looks like is to go to the American School for the Deaf in West Hartford. Has anybody been there or drove by?
No.
I drove by there when I was
Drove by? Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of history. It's the very first school for deaf people in the entire Western Hemisphere. It's the first one, and it's in Connecticut. So it's a huge, an opportunity for you to learn a lot of history if you're interested. The first school actually started in Hartford. And if you're ever driving down Asylum Avenue from Hartford going towards West Hartford, Asylum Avenue splits. And on the left is Farmington Avenue. And on the right is Asylum Avenue. And the reason it's called Asylum is because that is where it was actually the third school, the actual third building. It wasn't the first building, but it was the third building where the American School for the Deaf was at the old Hartford Insurance Company. But at that point where the two roads split, you'll see a statue. There's a little park, a very tiny park, and there's a statue, and you'll see hands like this. And there's a statue of a girl in the middle, standing in the middle of the hands. And her name is Alice Cogswell. And she was the very first student at the very original American School for the Deaf. So there's a lot of history here in Hartford, Connecticut about deafness. So if you're interested, check out the American School for the Deaf. They have a museum. You can go tell them that you want to come and visit. Maybe it would be a good field trip if you wanted to do that. What I want to talk about now is the fact that, just like I said, that deaf people, there's a whole range of how much they can hear and how much they can't hear. I want to see if maybe I can help make that a little bit more clear. I see some of you wearing glasses like me. Okay, so some of our glasses, like my glasses, I only need to read. If I'm watching a movie or if I'm driving, I'm fine. I don't need my glasses. But if I'm looking at something up close, I need my glasses to be able to read clearly. For some people, glasses can be very thick. The prescription can be really a strong prescription. For others, it doesn't matter how good the glasses are. It doesn't matter how strong they are. They never see really clearly, like somebody who has 20/20 vision. Okay? This is the same idea when we're talking about people who can't hear. There are a lot of different, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, a lot of different things, hearing aids, cochlear implants, and things like that. But the whole point is, depending on how much you're able to hear with just using your hearing, is going to kind of guide how you prefer to communicate with people. But deaf people are used to being around people who don't know how to sign. So they've learned, even though they might prefer American Sign Language, that may be the way that they feel most comfortable, they also know that they can write things out. And some of them actually can, it's what we call lip reading. So sometimes you can talk, you can mouth the words. If it's something simple, they may be able to follow. All right. The new technology is awesome because on your phones, on your iPhones or your Androids, whatever you might have, you can sometimes download an app that goes from voice to text. So if you, this is what, and deaf people love this because they'll be in a grocery store and let's say they're asking, you know, where can I find asparagus, okay, or something, okay, and they can type out, you know, asparagus, where would I find it, and then show it to somebody, and the person could talk into that phone and say, go to aisle 3. So that's the beauty of the new technology, is that it allows for that kind of communication, you know, very immediately. So you don't have to go looking for an interpreter. You don't have to write everything out. You can actually talk into it. All right. Lip reading is tricky. All right. So let me show you.
Oh, that is difficult.
It is. I don't know if there are a lot of games that you can play with lip reading. There's actually I think there is a game. I forget what it's called. It's not charades. Charades is where you act it out, but there is a game that is all about just lip reading, and it's really funny because you realize how bad we are all at lip reading. But if you can see my mouth, I'm not going to use my voice, and I'm going to say some words, and I want to see if you can tell me what I might be saying. They all look the same?
Mask.
Yeah.
A mask.
They do.
They all look the same. The words were pat, so pat, mat, bat, pan, fan. How are you supposed to know which one the person is saying? Right? All right. I'll give you it's another one.
Wait a minute.
Food?
Is it you?
Food? View?
Food?
Very good. But which one was it? Okay.
Right.
So that's the challenge with lip reading. Okay. And it's always fun. And we used to, my brothers and sisters and I would do this in church because we couldn't sign because people would know we were talking to each other. So we kind of look at each other and just mouth our words. And we would start laughing because we realized we didn't understand what the other person was saying. And it would look funny. So we'd get in trouble. So it didn't matter. We still got in trouble anyway. But the point with lip reading, we also call it speech reading, is it works if you understand what the context is. So let's suppose I just met you.
How are you?
Very good. Okay. So if you know what the situation is, let's suppose I am meeting someone for the first time and they're trying to get information. I know they're trying to get information from me. and they might say,
like
How
asking
old are you?
grades.
How old are you?
Yeah.
okay. So if you know what the situation is, it's a lot easier to lip read. Okay.
I think that's so difficult.
Yeah. The our words in the American in English, okay, here in American English, our words, only 35% you can actually see on the mouth. But even though you see it, you don't know, is it a m or a p or a b? You still don't know. But if you understand the context, you can narrow it down and makes a little bit more sense. So it's fun to try playing with it in different situations. As long as you're in a safe situation, you're not going to be getting in trouble when you're talking to somebody. Okay.
Now, when I work at assisted living, I understand people like the way they communicate. Because I see some in wheelchairs or walkers and stuff. And it's always hard to tell what they want sometimes, too.
Exactly. Yeah. We have a lot of people in our, especially in this day and age, a lot of people who maybe have, maybe they grew up, they could hear just fine and they could speak just fine. But maybe something happens, like they're in an accident or they have a stroke, or there's a lot of different ways that things can happen. And then after that happens, and you're like, and you say when in assisted living, that's often what we see is they have to learn a new way to communicate. And it's very sad. It's very frustrating.
It is.
Because I was lucky. I grew up, my brothers and sisters were older than me. So when I was born, they were already signing. I didn't have to think about it. I just learned it by being around them. And my mom and dad could hear, so they spoke. So I grew up bilingual. I didn't have to work at it, which was really easy. A lot of people who have to learn it, it's harder to learn because you have to think about it. We do a lot. It's what they call baby sign language is very popular. And they do it a lot with infants, and they'll, teach them because the kids, little babies can't talk yet. And so they teach them the sign milk, or they'll do bottle, okay? More, eat, or more, yeah. And those are all very important because then the baby has a way of telling you what they're feeling and what they're thinking, and they don't necessarily get as frustrated.
How about like pets, like when you talk to a cat or something?
My dog understands when I say. I have to be careful because if I use my voice, she'll think I'm taking her. It's like I'll sign it because she can't see me signing right now. But we'll do this if she has to go outside to use the, or we'll do this when it's time for dinner. When she wants to do this.
Yeah.
Play.
Oh, let's play.
What does it work like with
that's
kitties?
Our favorite. Yeah, play.
How does it work with kitty cats?
My cat never learned how to sign. She was very stubborn.
Oh.
But I have friends who have cats and they understand sign language.
Yeah. Because with my neighbor's kitty, I always go, "You hungry? Food?" Like that.
Yeah. And that's the thing is the difference between usually a dog and a dog will look at you. You can get eye contact with a dog. A cat is usually very independent and they're not really giving you a lot of attention. Exactly. It's all about them.
Okay. And yeah, when I did my sign language on Zoom, we actually did American signs. Because with English, you have to use the small letters and the small little words. So we skip those and just do the actual, like for me, like it's like your name, what?
Exactly. Very good. Very good. Yes. Yes, you're right. When we are when we're working with or interacting with deaf people, because they depend on using their eyes, it's very important that we look at them face to face. because that's how they're going to, that's, you know, the basic part of communication is making sure that you look at them. The other thing is you have to think about where the light is. So if the sun is behind you or light's behind you, it's kind of hard to focus in on the face. So you may want to turn sideways so that neither one of you have light behind you. And ask them, you know, if you know some signs, say, I know how to sign. If you know the finger spelling, you can say, I know how to finger spell. Or ask them, say, you know, what's your preference? What's your preference? That's the sign, preference. And they may tell you, you know, let's write, let's text. It works out, you know, it depends. Everybody's individual. Important thing is you need a lot of light to be able to communicate with a deaf person. Okay. Next
How can we
slide.
talk to them without like trying to shout at them or something?
Thank you. That is very important. That's, and you know what? I think you knew my slides before I think you read my mind.
Oh, good. And I love this cartoon.
Exactly. When you're talking to a deaf person, remember their ears are not going to be, they don't work like our ears do, which means yelling doesn't help.
It doesn't.
And usually when we yell, we're exaggerating, and that doesn't look normal. So
We're
you
screaming
very clearly, look at them, speak very clearly, but don't talk too slow because that doesn't look normal. All right, just speak
medium, like middle tempo.
Yeah, like a normal conversation, not like a real fast conversation, but like a normal conversation. Okay. If you have an interpreter, if you happen to have an interpreter, I know some of us interpret at some of the Special Olympic events. If there's an interpreter there, don't talk to the interpreter, talk to the deaf person. So you would say to the deaf person, can you tell me your name? You don't want to say to the interpreter, what's her name? Because you want a relationship with the deaf person, right? The interpreter is there to just kind of help make that happen. And so you want to actually focus on the deaf person. All right. The next thing is, don't be afraid to use your face because there's a lot of information on your face. All right. So look at my eyebrows, if you can see them. I have to take my glasses off so you can see them. Okay.
Yeah, I'm different.
Yeah, there is a difference. Okay. So if I say, what am I saying?
Yeah, you're not sure what's going on. Or
beautiful. Did you know sign language?
What? Not really. I'm starting to learn words as I communicate.
But my face, you could tell just by looking at my face and my eyebrows. Okay.
Or like having a different facial look too.
Okay.
Yep. Then now that's just confusion.
Like you're confused right now.
Yes.
Very good.
Oh, angry face.
That's angry. That's angry. Because if it's down, you just see the eyes going like a little bit down. But
yes, if your eyes is downward, that means that you're angry at that person.
Perfect. So feel comfortable with your face because your face has most of the language in your face and your eyebrows. All right.
Can you show like if a person's like crying or anything?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like really sad. Exactly. That's how I felt that at my grandmother's funeral though.
Yeah.
What about like if you get if a deaf person gives that what is it, that Dwayne Johnson look, that the one with the eyebrows, like
yeah, he's pretty exactly. So feel free to use your face. If you're trying to get a deaf person's attention and their back is turned, you can tap them on the shoulder very lightly. Tap them. Or if you can move around so that you can get their eyes on you, that's a good way too. But don't yell. Okay, don't stomp your feet, but just do it very lightly and very gently. All right. Most deaf people are used to being touched, but again, a very light, gentle touch just to get their attention.
I have a question.
Yes, Ashley.
So, I work with people like what we're talking about right now. How am I supposed to understand if I don't know what they're saying? Could I ask somebody else that has known sign language?
Definitely.
Okay.
That's a very good thing. If the person is talking to you and they're signing very quickly, okay, say, all you have to do is use your face and go, I don't understand. Shake your head and go, I don't get what you're saying, okay? They will know, and then maybe they know someone who's in the area who can help to communicate with you. As you learn to sign, because just like we talk very quickly, people sign very quickly, you can say, slow, go slow. And then they'll help you.
Okay, nah.
Yeah.
The reason
I
why
actually
I'm
have
asking
another friend on Zoom that I do activities with, and she's deaf, but she uses the computer to do answers.
Technology is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
The reason why I was asking is because I work at a flower shop, and sometimes I work with a lady who does sign language, can't hear, and I do ask, like I try to understand what she's saying, but then I ask the other person, and sometimes she doesn't know or she does know, so it's kind of a little bit of confusing.
And that happens, but that happens with all of us, right? Sometimes people talk and we don't catch what they said. We have to ask them, can you repeat? I didn't understand you. Whether maybe the area is loud, noisy, or, you know, for different reasons, we just ask. If you show that you're interested, people will learn how to communicate with each other. That's the most important thing, is showing that you really care and that you want to know what they're saying. That's good. And
I use like a sense of humor or something just to make them laugh or anything.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I do
We're
that
all
with my
human.
friend too.
Exactly, we're all human. And there is something that blind people use, and we laugh about this, but it's a true story. When we've gone, this happened with my brothers and sisters on an airplane, and the flight attendant gives them this fold out thing. You know how they tell you, make sure that you have your seatbelt on, make sure that you have that if we lose oxygen, pull that down, okay, all of those directions. And if there's a deaf person there, I don't know why, but they think, well, if we give them this and it's in Braille, that they'll understand. Deaf people don't need Braille. Their eyes, for the most part, unless they're deaf blind, their eyes work just fine. It's that they can't hear. And so we see that very often. It's in restaurants. They'll give them a special menu that's in Braille. And the deaf person's like, no, I can read. Just give me a regular menu. Okay? You may see that sometimes will happen. This one is just an idea about different kinds of jokes about people who are trying to lip read. You know, if you're going to talk, if somebody's trying to lip read, don't put anything in front of your face. When we had COVID, I thought deaf people were going to go crazy because everybody had to wear the mask. And we depend on face to express ourselves. All right. The other thing is people who tend to mumble. You don't move your mouth very well. It's hard to understand what you're
Don't work.
We need to see the mouth moving. We need to see the face moving. Okay. And these are some ideas for people who are deaf blind, how their vision what things might look like to them. So the first box is pretty clear. I think most of us can see what that really is. The box to the right of that, see how it's kind of wavy? Now, sometimes glasses can help to make that a little more sharp so they can see, but they may not ever get as clear as that first box. The third box is not wavy, but it's blurry. Same thing. Maybe glasses will help, but might not help that much. The last box is more about the darkness. I told you my mom was blind. My mom couldn't see anything. Everything was black to her. She grew up, she could see. So when we would talk to her about colors and tree and all, she knew what all of that was because she was able to see it growing up. But then when she became blind, she didn't see anything, but I could describe things to her. So that was different than somebody growing up without being able to see anything.
Marysue, I got a question to ask you. Before my grandmother died, she couldn't understand much what was going on because she had dementia and all that.
Right.
Is that part of what she's going through before she passed on?
Well, dementia a lot of things can be part of dementia. There may be, like they may hear things that don't sound very clear. My father had dementia, and he would see things and think that they were something else.
That's how she was too. Yes, same
But
thing.
it's not that his vision changed. It was how his brain interpreted what he was seeing.
Right.
Yeah.
Because grandma had a pretty good hearing. It's just like when we spoke to her, she just kept her mouth zipped half the time.
Yeah, it's sad. It's very sad.
My boyfriend's roommate is blind. So like he has to help him. They also have staff there that help him, but it's kind of difficult for him because he has problem like making his lunch and doing other things.
Yeah.
So I like tell him like why don't you go help him? So he's been helping him out a lot.
Good. Brittany, did you want to say something?
This is Matthew Glad, and at Northwest Park, there's a Braille trail at Northwest Park, and so if anyone's blind or deaf, they could just go on that trail, and it could tell you the history of the trail.
Yep. That you're right. The Braille is for people who can't see, but not everybody who is blind understands how to use Braille. It's a very hard, it's not easy. It's really hard to learn how to use Braille. So very often you'll see different places, well, they'll have audio. And so they can put the headphones on and they'll tell you about what it is that you're seeing. So it's nice to have a lot of variety so that, because we're not all the same. And so we all have different needs. We all have different tools that we need to help us get through things. Okay.
And also the National Pequot Museum and where Foxwoods is, they have those thingamajiggy that can tell people about the museum.
Yep. Where you push the button and they come on and they tell you about the history. Yeah. It's wonderful. I want to go through a couple of these real quickly and then we'll do all of our questions. How's that? Okay. I promise I'll make this real fast.
One thing I have to leave though, probably before.
Is that Abby?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you were able to join us. Is there a question that you have right now?
I wanted to tell you something.
What's that?
At where I work at a place called the Ark.
Yes.
And each of the day programs there, every month they have this lady come in that does a singing sign.
Oh, wonderful. Does she has she taught you how to sign?
She has a YouTube channel.
Beautiful. You can find, that's one thing that's wonderful about the computer is you can find all kinds of videos and things like that about learning how to sign. So it used to be you had to go someplace in person. Now you can actually use the computer to do that. The other thing that's wonderful about technology is if on your television, I don't know if how many of you use it, it's called captioning, where what you're hearing comes up, the words come up on the screen. So deaf people can understand what they're saying, whether it's the news or a TV show. They don't need somebody to sign. They can have somebody who's actually there, or the words that are actually being said on the screen. So that's nice. And that's really nice, especially if you're in a really loud place, like a restaurant or something, and you can't really hear the TV. You don't have to turn the TV up too loud. You can just read it, which is really nice.
I have to go to, can I continue one of my questions? Okay, one of my friends, she's like I have a friend who works with me as a road, but he can't even talk either. How can I communicate with him?
Now, is he deaf, or he's not able to speak very clearly?
He can't speak very clearly.
Okay, it depends. Some people have decided to try to learn how to use sign language to communicate. Sometimes they use a communication board. There's a lot of different ways that people have learned, because the computers are so wonderful right now.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
Sometimes that's easier, because they may learn how to sign, but if other people in their environment don't know how to sign, they're going to be frustrated.
Sorry about that. I had trouble with the computer a little bit.
Okay,
Can you repeat what you were saying before?
Let's let Marysue finish up her presentation, guys, and hold our questions, because we'd only have about 5 minutes left.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. Well, I love it because you're all excited. That makes the time go by very quickly. So things to remember is, don't be afraid to be visual. Don't be afraid to use your facial expressions and your gestures. Now I'm going to go, because you all work with the Olympics, I'm going to skip a little bit. And we're not going to worry about that. Okay. Okay. Well, that's what I want. Okay. So this is called the manual alphabet. And just to let you know, that only refers to here in America, American Sign Language. Because if you were to go to Britain, even though they speak English, their manual alphabet looks different. They use 2 hands instead of 1. Okay, so this isn't going to help you if you go to another country. But here in America, it's A, B, C, D, E. I know I'm going fast, but I will send this to you so you can print it out. M is 3 little things. N is 2. O is like that. O. P was just like this, was K goes up, P goes down. Q is the same. G is horizontal. And if you go down, it's Q. R, S, T, U, V, W. Looks like a W. V looks like a V. Okay, W. X is like this, just like a crooked finger. Y, and then Z. And when you're trying to learn how to do this, the important thing is to practice. You want to practice with each letter, but you want to practice by spelling words, because we don't talk like HOWARE YOU. We don't talk like that, right? Say words. How are you? Okay. So, and with deaf people, it's the same kind of thing. If you're slowly doing it, it's important for your name, because you want to make sure you spell your name. Kimberly, okay, and Brittany, okay. Those are important things to learn, but learn how to practice your finger spelling using different names and words and things like that. The next one is, I'm not gonna worry about that one. Okay, because you work with athletics, you actually have an advantage, because most sports signs actually look like what it is you do. So, all right, by the picture, what is that? What sport is that?
Baseball.
Baseball. Okay, so all right. Oh, that's a good question. Thank you for that's a challenge. Okay, but baseball is about the bat. It's batting. Okay, baseball.
Yeah.
Usually, if we're talking about baseball and softball, it depends again on who you're talking with. And some people will say softball, but that's really not what it is. It's like softball. They'll say softball or baseball, so that you know it's this. But it's also right. So they'll kind of add the mouth with the sign. All right. So we know that. What do you think basketball would be? What's important about basketball?
Basketball?
Shooting.
Dribbling?
Shooting. Right. That's the most, yeah, because you can't win a game if you can't shoot, right?
Exactly.
Make those baskets, right? You got to make those baskets. So that's basketball. What about bowling?
Rolling like bowling.
Bowling. Right. Exactly. Bowling. All right. How about running?
Like
Running.
Yeah.
Right. Now, there is a sign. This is called running also.
Oh.
But you don't have to worry, because if you do this, they're going to know what you're talking about. Okay?
Hi, guys.
Okay.
Bye-bye. What is, how about, okay, one more minute. How about exercise? What kind of things do you do when you exercise?
like lifting?
Jumping jacks.
Yeah, right. Okay. So my whole point in saying all of this, and we'll end with this slide, is you're working in a great field where you can pretty much gesture to get your point across. And so don't be afraid to do that. That's very important, that the deaf person feels like they're included with what you're doing. So if you don't understand, if you don't know sign language, just act it out. They'll probably get most of it. Okay.
I actually know two signs I'm pretty good with. Okay, my favorite is I love you. See, I, and then love you. That one I know.
And then this is an abbreviation.
Right.
I remember the alphabet. That's an I.
Yeah.
That's an L. And that's a Y. And they put them all together.
Oh. Yeah. And then my other favorite, I learned the other day at my group is go get help.
Yes. And that's the important thing. That's a very good sign. Help.
Yeah.
Help.
Yeah, help.
If you think about it, it makes sense, right?
Right.
You're lifting somebody, you're helping somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A lot of the signs actually, it's there's a word that we use, it's called iconic, which means it actually looks a lot like what it is you're doing. So definitely feel free. Don't be afraid to try, because you're not going to make it, even if it's not exactly right, if you show that you care and that you're trying, I guarantee you'll start picking it up very quickly, because that means the person knows you want to communicate with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, thank you for inviting me. And if you want to say you're welcome, all you have to do is it's a nod of the head. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah.
That's very simple.
That's good enough.
Well, we thank you, Marysue. This has been fantastic. This hour went by like that.
Yeah.
So we're going to have you come back, and I know Mick's going to be speaking to us and getting into a little bit more into sign language next
Mick
month.
Posner?
So yes.
Oh, wonderful.
So we have a follow-up session scheduled.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so we're going to keep it going and learn more about sign language, and maybe you can join us again in the future. We'd love that. But thank you so much. This has been really exciting. I know this was a topic that our global messengers were really excited to hear about. So thank you for your time and experience and expertise. We're so grateful. Let's give her a round of applause, everybody. Or thank you, I should say.
You're welcome.
Hopefully I'll see you out and about in different places.
Yeah.
We hope so. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.